you so much for joining us for this incredibly special occasion, which we are pleased to return to in person and so fully. Before we begin, there are 4 important people I want to recognize: the Cranbrook Quartet, including Chloe Chin, Sophia Yang, Tomas Serna, and Alex G., who provided the music for today. That we can have students from Cranbrook schools join us in that way is so special. And so thank all of you. This is the 33rd year that we gather to celebrate the President's Award for Excellence. And congratulations to each of our honorees on being selected by your colleagues as outstanding members of our community. It is a privilege and an honor to celebrate you, and I am incredibly grateful to be hosting today as Cranbrook's 9th president. For each, woohoo! I have been joking with Patty for weeks now that I would go off script because after all, it's my party, isn't it? For each of the presidents that have come before me, this event has held a very, very special place. And now I fully understand President Emeritus Dom DeMarco when he said that selecting the recipients for this award was by far one of the most difficult decisions, and yet one of the most rewarding. It was an absolute pleasure to read through all of the nominations that were submitted. All, absolutely all, were a true testament to the impact that you have made on this community and your colleagues. And I thank you for that example of excellence, which we must define. And I do so in this way, inspired by you. Excellence here is collaboration across our program areas. Excellence is dedication and willingness to offer innovative ideas that elevate Cranbrook as home for transformational teaching, learning, and creative endeavors. Excellence is service to this community as a place where we welcome and honor one another with all our diverse backgrounds and wide-ranging life experiences. That is excellence. That is what we honor today. Because we all rely upon love and support, encouragement of others, I welcome the families and friends of our honorees to this event tonight, and thank you for joining us. And I will follow in the footsteps of my predecessor and recognize my support, my husband, Nathan Costa, who has embraced his role and my role as I have taken on the president's and all that it entails. And so thank you, Nathan, for being here. And as I get to share a little bit now about the history of this award, please do help yourself to the amazing buffets that are with us tonight. And so, this event would not have been possible without the vision of Dr. Lillian Bauder, President Emeritus of Cranbrook Educational Community. Lillian's insight and support throughout the years has enabled us to continue to celebrate the excellence that is Cranbrook. In 1989, Lillian established the President's Award for Excellence. Later, she and her husband, Don, created an endowment to ensure that it would continue as a way of recognizing and celebrating members of our community. Lillian reflects, quote, "Those of you who were here during my tenure know that I spoke often of the importance of Cranbrook of people, program, and place. Those of you who were here remember also that for me, though people, program, and place were all important, the greatest of these clearly was people, who are the essence of Cranbrook's soul. And so our thought was to create an event to recognize Cranbrook's people." Lillian continues, "Importantly, people means all people. You will notice that from the very first year, we included exceptional individuals representing the many aspects of Cranbrook's life. All needed to be excellent and to work together to fulfill the promise of Cranbrook." I know that Lillian appreciates the fact that we have carried on this tradition, recognizing all members of our Cranbrook community, whether they are board members, volunteers, or CEC staff. Each year, we videotape this event and share a copy of it with Lillian. And I would like to ask your indulgence and to turn to the camera in this part of the room and give a wave as we remember Lillian and send her our best. She continues to be a vibrant part of this community, a trusted advisor to me, and we are grateful for all that she and Don have done for our community. The idea to recognize recipients of this distinguished award with a bench came out of a conversation Lillian had with one of the very first award recipients, as she explains. "We wanted also to have some way to memorialize each year's awardees for their permanent contribution to Cranbrook. I asked the first year's awardees to work with me on what it means to do that. We had many suggestions, but the one that held the day was school's colleague Charlie Shaw's suggestion of a bench. Our idea was to begin at the Kingswood Lake and to gradually find spots throughout the campus where benches would be welcomed. Importantly, we had Gary Griffin at our Academy of Art who could, at that time, craft such benches with the legs reflecting the honorees each year. As I mentioned, this year marks the 33rd class of award recipients. The President's Award event honors and recognizes the contributions of individuals who epitomize Cranbrook's dedication to achieving excellence. This event is unique in that the recipients are nominated by their peers. Every year, the list of candidates for this award grows. In October of 2021, we celebrated Rita Lindstrom, Cindy Miller, Michael Stakoviak, and Carolyn Stevens. With pandemic-related restrictions, we held a more intimate gathering last year, and we were thankful that we could continue the tradition of honoring and celebrating throughout our community. The bench honoring last year's recipients is on display out front in the lobby. Please take a look at it and admire. Thus far, we have 138 individuals who have received the President's Award since its inception. Of that, 26 are with us this afternoon. Let's recognize them. Please stand if you are able and with us. We continue to invite all past recipients to have their picture taken on their bench once it is installed. Some of those pictures were scrolling on the monitors as you came in today. We are hoping to capture as many pictures as possible of award recipients on their benches and keep them in the archive. Our colleague Eric Franchi will make arrangements with each awardee this year to have your picture taken as the spring warms things up. This map, and also in the lobby, shows the location of the benches honoring recipients. The orange highlighted box is where the 2021 bench will be placed on the grassy terrace to the west of the Institute of Science. The blue highlighted box is where this year's bench will be located at the intersection of Academy Way and Institute Way across from the Jonah Fountain. As we think about all that makes Cranbrook unique, we have over 892 full and part-time employees, many of whom stay at Cranbrook for 20, 30, 40, 45, even 50 years. This coming fall, we will recognize these milestone anniversaries and extraordinary dedication and commitment at our Employee Appreciation event. Cranbrook is also unique and fortunate to have over 350 volunteers that tend the Cranbrook Gardens and maintain Cranbrook House. Regardless of one's tenure here, though, and whether you are a member of our landscape crew, a faculty member, an administrator, a member of our volunteer leadership, each of us is called to contribute to the advancement of our educational programs, the beauty of our campus, and the development of our students at every age that we find them. Our everyday tasks greatly impact the lives of everyone who encounters Cranbrook, and we all have a critical role in promoting the excellence of this special place. Cranbrook also has nearly 160 trustees, governors, and committee members who volunteer their time at numerous meetings throughout the year, offering their advice and counsel as we determine strategic priorities and advance Cranbrook regionally, nationally, and internationally. I would like to recognize Mark Royce, Chair of the Board of Trustees of Cranbrook Educational Community, and Linda Gillum, First Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees of the community. Would you please stand and let us appreciate your work and dedication. Cranbrook is fortunate to have you both and your colleague trustees as volunteers, and we thank you. And now, the comments on this slide highlight our awardees. These were taken directly from the nominations that were submitted by coworkers and peers for each of you. These are the qualities that describe what you give us and how you inspire us every day. This is what makes accomplishing our community's goals so rewarding. Each of today's honorees, in his or her own way, represents the very best of this place and community. And so, it is time to meet each of them and celebrate their accomplishments. Destined for greatness, surely. It is our custom that our honorees have each selected a friend, a colleague, or family member to introduce them. Let us start these presentations, and I welcome forward James Coleman, Chief of Staff at PNC Bank, who will introduce our first recipient, Rick DeVore. Please come forward.
Good evening. I don't know if I can follow those pictures, so I'm going to try to do that, but that was fantastic. So what a great evening it is to be here tonight, and to President Roche and the Cranbrook community and the family that made this evening possible. We appreciate it, so thank you. I think they deserve a round of applause for putting this together. So, when we were looking through what this meant, and we were looking at the past recipients of this award, and we were thinking of what we were going to put together, you look at the work that people put in the Cranbrook community and the volunteers. People really epitomize the dedication of excellence to community and collaboration, right? That was the common theme when you look across the awards and the folks that received these. So immediately you think of Rick DeVore. Our team did, I did. Seeing his name on there is not a surprise to us, but it's really great to be in a space where other folks recognize that as well. So when I look through and for the career, and we talk about all the things that Rick's done and the commitment to the community, for more than 4 decades, he's demonstrated a consistent commitment to community involvement, which his focus is on improving public education, advancing racial equality, having conversations that were uncomfortable, having conversations with a group of leaders in the company that looked just like he did. There was not women at the table at the time. There may not be LGBTQ plus folks at the table. And Rick did a lot to change that. So when you think about the opportunities and what he's done in Southeast Michigan, it really all kind of started back in 2015. Rick was named Michiganian of the Year by the Detroit News for his leadership in PNC's financial and volunteer support for our Grow Up Great program, PNC's $500 million commitment to early childhood education. And more recently, Rick led PNC's Metro Detroit education and equality initiatives associated with the bank's 2020 commitment to deploy $1 billion nationwide to combat systemic racism and support the economic empowerment of Black and brown communities. In May 2021, Rick and Detroit Mayor Duggan announced that PNC Bank would invest $7.5 million to create and preserve affordable housing in Detroit. In addition to being our chair of the local PNC Foundation for the past 12 years, Rick previously served on the board of directors for Oakland University, Business Leaders for Michigan, Cranbrook Educational Community, Detroit Economic Club, Detroit Regional Chamber, Detroit Symphony Orchestra, and Priority Health. I think we might have missed a few, but that was a lot we didn't want to bore you with anymore. So truly an honorable amount of time and commitment to the community and dedication that Rick has displayed. In March of 22, Rick announced he would retire from his 30-plus year career at PNC and take on a new adventure, a philanthropic mission as the president and CEO of the Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan. I have a quote on here, which I got pages and pages of quotes on Rick, so there's no shortage of quotes, and we have a lot that we didn't share because we didn't want to do a roast, but now after you said that really probably would have been a great way to do it. But this one is really impactful because it really speaks to Rick's DNA and who he is, what his foundation is. And it's Jim Nicholson, chair of the Community Foundation and chair of PVS Chemical. He said, Rick is a proven leader who is the right person at the right time for his community foundation. He said his expertise and relationships in the community and business sectors, paired with his passion for leading efforts to improve public education, advance racial equality, and expand entrepreneurial and employment opportunities for all, make him uniquely qualified to continue the Community Foundation's commitment to improving life for all throughout the 7-county region. Rick has the depth of experience to lead one of the country's largest community foundation with its collaborative initiatives and relationships. And we couldn't have said that best because it's absolutely the truth. And the part about that was the passion. So many people don't have the authentic passion to really make change in a community. It's a checklist for them. It's a box that you want to check off, and they want to have every person around a table, but it's that collaborative component, Rick, that you bring to it that makes it very different. So we've talked a lot about Rick's professional accomplishments and what he's done for the community, but he's also more than that. He is a great husband to Donna. He's a father, he's a grandfather, he's a history junkie. He'll bore you to death with some of the history stuff, but he's a history junkie. As you heard earlier, he's a former Michiganian of the Year, which he has a big plaque in his office, which he bubble wrapped, and a U-Haul truck came to pick it up for his new office with security behind it. He's an inclusive leader, and as you've heard, he's a mentor. He's a passionate driver for equality. He's a creator of countless Devorisms, which if you've not heard them, you're clearly missing out. But most importantly, Rick is our friend, and he has a heart of gold. So, President Roche, it's my humble honor to present Rick DeVore, the recipient of the 2022 President's Award of Excellence.
Wow, that was great. When I drove up, I was a 1998 recipient of this award as Patty. And in typical Patty fashion, there it was, my name on the parking spot, an orange cone. I mean, everything was just running like clockwork. And when I was driving in, the song on the radio was Lucky Man by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And I thought, that actually sums it up for me. I've been, quite lucky in my career, and, I think you kind of make luck. But, one of the things that fascinates me about this campus is 319 acres in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. I say to a lot of people that are native and only Detroiters that don't have a different point of view, and I've lived in Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and back home in Detroit. I'm from Detroit. I'm like, you don't realize sometimes the jewels that we have in this region. And Cranbrook is one of those. I mean, when you think about the Science Center, the Arts Center, the Academy, and of course the schools, and just these grounds are just amazing. And, I could go on and on, at the Henry Ford, the Edison Institute, but there's just some real gems in this community that I'm honored to be a part of. In a strange quirk of fate, and this, I don't want to be morbid, but I literally live 300 yards, not 319 yards, but 300 yards of the final resting place of Booth family. My street dead ends into the Greenwood Cemetery. And so we go through there a lot. It's going to be celebrating its 200th anniversary, teaching our grandkids some of the people that are in the cemetery. And it always strikes me that, how fortunate I am to live in this region. I've tried to utilize the enormity of the breadth of this campus, whether it's the Science Institute, the Art Institute, but also incorporate what I think is PNC's trademark, which is outreach to the community. Women of Vision is probably still the most exciting thing I've ever been involved with. The 11 most famous female photographers of National Geographic, one of them a Pulitzer Prize winner. And we brought them to this campus, but we would not do that without an agreement, and it was very easy to cut with Mike Stafford, that we would do outreach with Detroit Public Schools, with Cranbrook Schools, with Kingswood, and do a photojournalism scholarship. And so these young ladies came on the weekend, and they got to post their material, and that is really, I think, who we are and who this campus is. And so I really think that's the way that philanthropy needs to be done. When I've been asked, and I must admit that I am not a graduate of this fine institution. But I would get asked a lot by parents and colleagues from Pittsburgh about Cranbrook, and if I could explain to them, the choices, whether we're talking about Country Day or Roper, and I said, well, I might not be the best person to answer that, but the way I look at it is this. I think schools like Country Day do a great job of preparing children for college. I think Cranbrook does a great job of preparing children for life. And I sincerely believe that, and I think that's the DNA of this institution. The last thing I was just going to point out is my successor, Mike Bickers, is here sitting with me, an attendee of Upward Bound Horizons. And he tells me this had he has a lifelong love affair, I know, of cars, because he's my car guy that tells me what to buy. And thank God they're all been Cadillacs for Mark. But with that said, it was his ability to live with a General Motors executive during the summer, a kid in Detroit. And if you think of that, I'm not going to say how old Mike is, but this isn't something that Cranbrook just came up with. This is something that they've lived for a long time. And I'm really proud to be associated with an institution like this. So, President, I really appreciate the honor, and all recipients, congratulations. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Rick, from one Pittsburgher to another. And now, Teresa Coleman, the Assistant Director at our Early Childhood Center, will introduce James Carletto.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be talking to you about James Carletto and his inspiring work with both the children and the faculty at Brookside. James teaches innovation and technology classes to a variety of grade levels at Brookside, and I have the privilege of witnessing his work with our youngest students in the Early Childhood Center. So to try and fit everything that James does for Brookside into a 5-minute introduction is pretty much impossible, but I'm going to give it a go. Simply put, James is a gifted educator, a thoughtful colleague, and an honorable person. He moves for Brookside, exemplifying the very characteristics we strive to instill in our students: intelligence, humility, kindness, and a collaborative spirit. James joined our faculty right when we were in the thick of talking about innovation, and we were moving our technology classes to innovation and technology classes. So when Karen Watson, the director of the Early Childhood Center, and I interviewed James, our conversation was filled with words like creativity, empathy, exploration, mistakes, trial and error, recovery, and the list goes on. And once hired, it was soon apparent that James was a game changer. He flipped technology classes so that instead of placing children in front of computers, they were taking them apart. They, with their tools in their hands, goggles on, really excited to see what was inside. In speaking with Julie Schultz, his talented co-teacher and partner in innovation and technology, she describes how together they have undigitized technology and changed the way we think of technological tools. Empathy, which can feel like a polar opposite term when you talk about technology, is front and center in James's lessons. For example, he might ask our kindergarten children to think about Goldilocks and what kind of chair she would need to be strong and not break. Or think about the pig's perspective in building a house when they turns on the big bad fan to see if it'll blow apart. And he also puts process and discovery front and center, asking children what's going to happen to the Play-Doh if we change the ingredients when we make it. So to again quote Julie Schultz, James understands that technology is simply a tool for a greater goal, and that goal is to create something meaningful. And clearly, James has upended technology classes in the most quiet, thoughtful, and playful way. So coding, programming, building, problem solving, predicting, failing, recovering, experimenting, laughing, all of this happens in James's classes. In innovation technology classes, children can be found using tools, constructing structures, creating vehicles, designing and building marble runs, utilizing circuits. I know when James is in the ECC classroom because squeals of excitement and discovery can be heard throughout the halls. Finding James is more difficult. He's fully immersed, and he's usually right on the floor in the middle of an excited group of children. He physically lowers himself to a child's level. He fully engages in all their emotions, excitement, frustration, joy, curiosity. Children have his full attention, and he listens carefully, repeats their requests and ideas, and he thoughtfully problem solves with them. They love him. And so do the adults. James not only educates our young students, but also his colleagues. With great enthusiasm, he supports the early adopters, and with seemingly endless patience, he supports those of us who are less comfortable with technology. He explains, and he re-explains, and he demonstrates, and he handholds, and we sometimes reluctantly learn new programs and work through our computer glitches, and James is right there with us. He appears always happy to help. He never makes anyone feel silly or slow when working through technology, and his kindness and patience are deeply appreciated by all. And I would be remiss if I didn't spend some time talking about March 2020 to now, our COVID years. Along with his technology team, his calm, clear leadership brought us all online to deliver calm, clear instruction to Brookside students. He and his colleagues taught us to Zoom, Loom, Seesaw, Google Classroom, and more. He flipped videos for us, he fixed our glitches, he re-explained steps, and he made himself available at all hours for support. Brookside teachers had one afternoon to learn a new way to teach, and once we went online, James and his colleagues were constantly available to help. On top of this, James produced the most engaging, online, Disney-worthy lessons, full costume and character for our youngest students. When I should have brought one, right? They're really good. And when we returned to in-person instruction, James led us through CK Online. When a substitute teacher had to fill in for a quarantine teacher, he was right there, first thing in the morning, ready to help that teacher get upset, to zoom in the absent teacher, zoom in the quarantine students. He anticipated things that we didn't even know that we needed. Simply put, James was and is integral to our success in keeping school running during COVID. So the list of James's work is incomplete, but I want to conclude by talking about the kind of person James is. I popped into some classrooms and I walked the halls and I really wanted to listen to what the words that his colleagues used. Patient, calm, accommodating, unflappable, the problem solver, patient. He will do whatever it takes to make something happen. He'll sacrifice to do so. Patient, thoughtful, an amazing person, always happy to help. Patient, never judges. He makes it safe to go to him with issues. Patient, the king of loose parts, kind, unassuming, and patient. And I would like to add humble. Shying from attention, he seems to seek nothing other than the satisfaction of serving children and colleagues. James embodies Brookside, he embodies Cranbrook, and he embodies everything that the President's Award for Excellence represents. President Roche, it's my pleasure to present to you James Curletto, recipient of the 2022 President's Award for Excellence.
All right. So for those of you who know Teresa, or perhaps are meeting her for the first time, she's an inspiring, caring leader, just wonderful human being. So her words today are really greatly felt. So thank you. This is a tricky way to start a 5-minute remark, but I was fortunate to be brought to Cranbrook when I was 6 or 7. Thanks, Mom. And one of the many features that left a lasting impression were the stone walls that surround campus. And at the time, I felt the walls were a magical boundary between busy Woodward and the extraordinary museums and the rolling hills within. And then after a time, I was able to visit again towards the end of high school. to take an SAT test right here in Kingswood. And my impressions then were that the walls stood as a sort of a barrier between me and the type of schooling and life that I really didn't understand. Yet after 15 years here at CIS and Brookside, my perspective continues to shift. So I'll present to you a brief list of what I've learned about Cranbrook and myself during that time. To start, packing both a raw and a cooked egg to bring to an interview in order to demonstrate properties of inertia could be enough to land a job as outreach coordinator at the Institute of Science. That at every one of the approximately 500, that's a guess, I don't know, it's in the hundreds, schools that I visited across Michigan with outreach, something remarkable was going on in their walls. From the commitment of Detroit teachers to stay late and organize science nights for their students, to rural schools for at-risk teens, and I felt really fortunate to witness all of that. That teaching art and science together, as we did in Art and Science on the Go, should not feel forced. That if you choose a problem or an idea to express, that different modes of thinking will naturally result. That you could meet another educator during camp, summer camp, and impress her during campus cleanup with your use of trimmers on invasive species. Take picnics by the Triton pools. Become engaged by the fountain under a veil of pines in front of Cranbrook House. Exchange vows on the steps of the garden. And toast your partnership in front of a megalodon jaw at CIS. And each of those places will now forever have a special place in our hearts. That if you tape a motor and a battery to a toothbrush and bring it to an interview, you may get a faculty position at Brookside. I ascribe to the prop comic approach to interviews, apparently. That young people are actually not to be feared, but they can be quite rewarding to teach and learn alongside, as they provide perspective and a depth of ideas that you feel like you might have left behind a long time ago. I got you, Teresa, on this one. That in your desperation to engage with young students remotely during a pandemic, you might enlist your family and produce a video such as this.
It's boring out here. We've been out here for days. It's just kind of lonely. There's not much to do. I wish we could have a little bit of fun. Off the port bow, it's Captain No Beard. And what do you have for us, Captain No Beard? A treasure map. It's the secret to Fun Island. We're off to Fun Island. Let's find out how we can have fun. Arr. Arr.
Already.
All right, well done. So that was Charlotte and Riley a few years ago. So thank you for that, girls. Charlotte, by the way, is 6 today, so happy birthday, Charlotte. Okay, one more. That you can find yourself in a supportive environment that could allow for such self-discovery and growth and times for reflection such as these. So to return to the stone walls, I now consider their strength and durability. And while these stones each play their part, each one unique, the wall's permanence also results from the mortar that holds these parts together, much as it is here among us and the bonds we share as keepers of the Cranbrook spirit. So thank you to Megan, Charlotte, and Riley, to my mom, Uncle Don, Joey, and Erica, thank you. To my colleagues, Julie Schultz, whom I work with every day and makes all this happen, Ann Snyder, Laura Marmestein, all the faculty at Brookside, to the LMETS and IT team, to Keith and Kai and Karen and Teresa, to Dr. Suzik, and everyone who made this possible, Patty, Eric, Rhonda, and of course, AC. Thank you.
Congratulations, James, and thank you for all I have learned about education from you. Next, Kevin Mill, Landscape Superintendent, will now introduce our colleague, Roger Rotarius, the next recipient.
My name is Kevin Mill. I'm the landscape superintendent, as AC just mentioned. I'd like to take this opportunity to talk about the 139th recipient of the President's Award, Roger Rotarius. Roger has been a dedicated, skilled groundskeeper horticulturalist for the past 23 years who has exemplified Cranbrook's excellence in so many ways. The first way that comes to mind is Roger's willingness to share his wealth of knowledge regarding plants, animals with the Cranbrook community. Roger is often called upon to save an injured animal, reunite a baby bird with its mother, or protect a dog walker who comes between a newly birthed fawn and its mother. Extremely dangerous situation. The list can become endless, with these just being a few examples. There is not a day that goes by that Roger is not asked a question by a visitor or staff member about what type of plant is this, or how do I get to a specific location? What type of, and directions. He is always willing to answer with an abundance of information on plant selection, variety, what type of soil they do well in, where you can purchase them, and what the current cost is at the Eastern Market. If it isn't a location on campus that is asked about, he will give all three names because everything at Cranbrook has three names, depending on when you went to school. His detailed directions on where to find restrooms, how to get there, where to park are legendary, if the patron has time to make it there. Roger's attention to detail is also an especially important part of achieving Cranbrook excellence, going above and beyond. Roger is an expert detailer when it comes to grounds work, who works tirelessly to achieve perfection. The attention to detail for all Cranbrook special events has earned the respect of organizers, brides, mothers, event planners, photographers, staff, and guests. One example of this is when a bride's mother was so impressed with Roger's attention to detail and set up suggestions that she fired her wedding planner and used his suggestions. This is when I gave Roger the nickname of Wedding Planner, which he cherishes to this day. Roger Rotarius is a man of many talents. He is creative, resourceful, and giving. He gives of his time tirelessly to help the needs of the landscape department and the Cranbrook educational community. Roger has been called on by teachers from all schools on campus to give in-classroom presentations on plant identification, wildlife, and Earth Day projects. He has also assisted with volunteer groups, Girl Scouts, and parent groups. He's been an active garden auxiliary member for over 12 years and received special recognition in 2021 in service, which I just found out you put your retirement in at that time? No? Okay, sorry about that. Patty Carey told me to keep this talk to 5 minutes, and I reminded Patty that I've never had a conversation or talk with Roger that did not last more than 20 minutes. So I will close and say I've worked with Roger for over 16 years and have a deep understanding of his commitment and love of Cranbrook. We are truly blessed to still have people like Roger that understand what Cranbrook excellence is. I cannot think of anyone more deserving of the President's Award for Excellence. Congratulations. President Roche, it is my privilege to present to you Roger Rotarius, recipient of the 2022 President's Award.
First of all, I'll say that I will keep this 5 minutes, not 20. I would like to thank AC, Kevin, my boss, for the opportunity to be here today and to share some of my experiences since I came to Cranbrook. I was very blessed about 25 years ago to be interviewed by Peter Osler and Associates, and they were going to be doing the herb garden at CIS. So I came for my first interview to the new entrance wing, the old cafe wing, all ripped out with tons of soil and rocks everywhere. And I thought, wow, this is really going to be a challenge. And 2 years later, became the infancy stages of the herb garden. I eventually came into the landscape department, and I've been very blessed to work at the Brookside infancy as well, for the Brookside Children Garden, working closely with Ann North. So I've had a lot of connections very, very early. And one of the things that a colleague told me when I first started here was, once you come through the front entrance, you don't leave. And guess what? We're all here today. There's two people that I think should be recognized today, and that is George Goff Booth and Ellen Script Booth, who have left this earth 73 years ago. And look at how we continue to grow with all of our buildings, all of our wings, all of our additional landscaping, Kevin. And it just continues to develop after 118 years. It's just been amazing. I've been blessed to be able to go into the schools and do a lot of different presentations with Kevin's knowledge and without his knowledge. So I did a presentation a couple years ago for the 4-year-old ECC, early child care. And I had brought in some of my animals, and I raised these little tiny ceramic chickens, and I held up an egg, and I said, can anybody tell me where this egg came from? And this little boy, Jacob, vigorously raised his hand and said, Trader Joe's. I knew then I needed to educate where that egg comes from before it gets to Trader Joe's. So this is a memorable moment for me, one that I really cherish. Another one is we have the graduations, we have weddings. Weddings on our campus are over the top. We've had a request for a bride to be able to walk on water over a reflection pool. I got a call one time when we were doing a family barbecue, could I come back to work to remove some pink ducklings? I'm thinking I'm going to pick up some little rubber ducks. I get to reflection pool, they weren't rubber ducks, they were hot pink baby goslings that I had to get out of that pool. We've had everything from last year after a torrential rain and the water couldn't take the tent, that we came in on Sunday morning and I thought there was mud wrestling going on at that wedding. Everything was sopping wet with mud. So I have so many memories. I hope that I have impacted Cranbrook in some way or another. I love statistics. I love facts. I just recently read that a true gardener plants 10,000 plants in their lifetime. I hope I exceed that number because it's been a joy. It's been a pleasure to be here and to be around everybody here. I know a lot of you. I know a lot of you have conversations with me, but we keep that a secret. And in closing, I would just like to say that Cranbrook is a very rare gem. It's something that we should cherish and embrace because there's not a lot of places like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger, and congratulations. And thank you for making not just this campus, but our lives more beautiful and more joyful every day. And now, Michael Young, please come up. Michael is a practicing clinician and the school's counselor. He will introduce Carly Young.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, President Roche. And as AC just said, I'm married to Carla. I didn't realize until this evening how important, as a Country Day graduate, it is to be married to someone who can guide me through life post-college. So appreciative. It's a little competitive. Yeah? Let me start out by saying that the opinions, let me put my glasses on. Let me start out by putting my glasses on. The opinions expressed in these introductory remarks are strictly my own and do not necessarily represent the opinions of my wife, Carla Young. I think that most of you know Carla, over there. She's been Cranbrook's Director of Community and Multicultural Programs, which covers the entire CEC for about, now you told me 23 years. The pamphlet says 30. Earlier it said 35. Anyway, you're starting to get an inkling of the kind of relationship we have. Prior to coming to Cranbrook, she was on the faculty at Liggett for 14 years, where she honed her skills as an exceptional English teacher and mentor of students. She also cultivated a wonderful national reputation in independent education and served actively for several years on the board of ISACS, the Independent Schools Association of Central States. And about 17 years ago, I, a well-seasoned bachelor, married into a wonderful prefabricated family of Carla and 4 children, 3 of whom are sitting proudly by their mother over there. There's Kelly and Christopher and Mara. Candace, the 4th child, lives in California and wishes she could be here to celebrate her mama. So I thought, what can I share about Carla that you don't already know? Well, it turns out there's a lot. But I only have about 4 minutes and I want to stay married, so I have edited accordingly. Here are a few quick facts about my wife. She loves cats and dogs. Many Fridays she can be found conducting a one-woman karaoke show in our living room to decompress at the end of a work week. There are actually no endings to Carla's work weeks. She's a bona fide workaholic when it comes to advocating for other people. Carla can whip up a fantastic dinner for 10, but she will likely disappear from the gathering around 8 o'clock. She'll declare that she's gone upstairs to grade papers. What does grade papers mean, kids? She gone to bed. She does not get cheated on sleep. Carla loves to read and might be diagnosed by some as a book hoarder. You can never surprise her by giving her a book that she doesn't already have. Carla is a shameless promoter of Cranbrook, having tried to convince several Cleveland family members, as well as a notable Hollywood couple, to board their kids at Cranbrook. If I had more time, I would get into the Hollywood couple story. This whole award thing, very uncomfortable for Carla. I think if she could have chosen between getting this award or a root canal, she would have chosen the latter, because at least with the root canal, she would have gotten anesthesia. Sometimes, to her detriment, Carla is allergic to self-promotion and isn't thrilled about being celebrated. She believes that receiving an award for doing her job is rather unseemly. Comedian and social satirist Chris Rock once offered up a blistering commentary on people who take credit for things they're supposed to do, like fathers who brag, "Well, I take care of my kids." Well, Rock asserted, you're supposed to take care of your kids. I think Carla holds herself and others to the same expectation. Do your job. Do what you're supposed to do. Do the right thing. She wears earnestness and hard work, fairness, equity, and social justice on her sleeve. Now, I wasn't there in Cleveland where she grew up, but I'm quite sure that in grade school, Carla was the student at the end of the class who raised her hand and said, Miss Crabtree, you forgot to give us homework. I'm pretty sure that was you. Her mother says that on occasion, teachers would gently complain that during class, Carla would unashamedly tell them they were wrong about something in their daily lesson plan. We can draw a through line from her childhood pluckiness to today, particularly when it comes to speaking truth to power and ruffling a few feathers in the pursuit of equity. Now, Carla will concede that she's not always right. I'm still trying to convince Carla that I'm not always wrong. We know the old Ben Franklin adage, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Carla would prefer her role to skew heavily towards prevention, like people being well trained in seed and restorative justice practices, but too often finds herself called to put out preventable fires. I don't really understand how Carla wrangles so many different, often differing stakeholders in the CEC universe to try to ensure a sense of equity and community. Here are a few of the main axes with which she is constantly engaged: gender identity, socioeconomic status, religious affiliation, political orientation, learning differences, racial diversity, social emotional development, physical health and well-being. Frankly, I think that Director of Community and Multicultural Programs is a pretty thankless role. It's very difficult to get human beings to self-examine on matters of personal and systemic bias. Zoom dysmorphia is a term that emerged when, during the pandemic, people were forced to see close-ups of their faces, a lot. For the first time on all those Zoom calls. People often didn't like what they saw and became much more self-conscious and anxiety-ridden about their appearances. I think Carla's role is often a bit like holding up a mirror for all of us to look at ourselves, blemishes and all. We all have them. Our resistance to self-examination can be quite strong. How do we learn to acknowledge and accept our blemishes and eventually be at peace with ourselves and each other? Thank goodness we have someone like Carla to help guide us through this thicket. Imagine this place without her. President Roche, it is my pleasure to present you Carla Young, recipient of the 2022 President's Award for Excellence.
So, hello. Since Michael named my discomfort, I will share with you that the last time I was given a mic to share a few of my thoughts, I sang. It wasn't pretty, so I won't be doing that again tonight. I want to thank AC for honoring the group and continuing this event in celebration of who we are as people in this community. And I especially want to thank her because of what she's come to mean to me as a colleague in this space. This is a special place. We're on the precipice of becoming what we have always been meant to be if we think about the ideas and the imagination of the booths. I am so thankful to be honored alongside of people whose gifts I don't share. I think about a lot literature, and as my husband outed me as a bit of a hoarder of books. In thinking about remarks for tonight, I was just drawn to this line from Hamlet. Use every man after his desert, and who should escape whipping? Thinking about how we enter in spaces deeply flawed. I don't know that deserving of these acknowledgments and accolades are something that I am centered with. I feel like I'm being treated better than I deserve, but I thank you, and I accept, and I appreciate being here. To fellow awardees, Rick, I was thinking about, hey, don't ask me about finance or governance. I'm still paying college loans and being governed at this point by fur babies at home. So management. James, don't ask me about technology. Just talk to Tracy Hightower and ask her what it's like to tutor an adult. Roger, these are new friends. Don't ask me about the flora and the fauna and all of the things on campus. I confess I kill plants. So your gifts to the community are gifts that we need, and I thank you for bringing them to us. I am also just humbled by the list of former awardees, many of whom at their feet I continue to sit. I don't like the standing on shoulders because I don't think I'm above anything, but I sit humbly at your feet and continue to bask in your tutelage and your colleagueship, your friendship. I think of Drew Miller and Sandy Smith and Bob Wilson and Patty Carey and Charles Shaw, and I can go on and on. Norma, Vanessa, Rhonda, Beth, oh my goodness, David Watson, Chevy, all of these people, and the names that can't go through the list because I only get 5 minutes, although they promised 15 minutes a frame. I don't understand what happened here, but okay, 5 minutes I get. I couldn't bring the talents and skills that you all collectively and individually share if I wanted to. We can never do it alone. So I am humbled to be standing alongside such excellence. In my work in the CEC, I have deeply understood that conversation as a part of our community structure is essential. I read annually a text entitled Community, the Structure of Belonging. It is written by Peter Block. Some of you may know his name from Flawless Consulting. But Peter gives us 6 conversations that he offers as essential to building belonging in community. The final conversation he offers is the gifts conversation, and that is something that we are witnessing in this moment. In the gifts conversation, we recognize and celebrate the unique and varied talents we offer to each other. If I have had an occasion to do any work with those of you in the room over the years, you know my deep commitment to conversation as a vehicle to change both individual and community. And through that, I really believe we can change the world. Simple, truthful conversation where we each have a chance to speak, we each feel heard, and we each listen well. And those of you who know me well, you know it's taking everything in me not to stop right now and do a circle check-in. So, okay, I won't do that. But just to get through the offering of my remarks here, I'm going to offer a reflection in 3 parts. People love work. People. Ephesians 4:8. When he ascended on high, he carried away captives. He gave them gifts in men. The Zulu term Ubuntu bears the deep meaning of humanity. It's sometimes translated as I am because we are, or I am because you are. When we think of this humanity towards other, I'm always amazed at the many ways our people invest themselves in Cranbrook, in the Cranbrook community, offering support to others, offering their talents in the many ways of knowing that we have and learning to build our skills and connections. I have yet to work with a group of people here that don't express deep love for and towards this place and the people who occupy it. Yeah, they express a lot of frustration as well, but the love is what dominates. I want to thank my table for your gifts. These are my special people, my family, both nuclear and extended. My family, biological family shows up here, and my nuclear family shows up here like a modern day Vitrino family, for those of you who know Cranbrook history, where the family came and intersected and contributed to so many different parts of this community for so many years. And so my children work here. My love works here. And we are grateful to be a part of this place on its journey. So, 1, love. Besides all of these things, clothe yourselves with love, for it is a perfect bond of union. That's from Colossians. And in that scripture, it talks about continuing to put up with one another and forgive each other daily. When we think about love and the 4 types of love, eros, storge, philia, agape, that love that we share and we demonstrate is what binds us together. If you've accessed any of the Cranbrook conversations, you might notice that we've ritualized the landing page with an image of the community and the musical selection, A Love Supreme by John Coltrane. I think a lot about love and its power. I think about the quotation from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. We lose ourselves in the things we love, and we find ourselves there too. That's Kristen Martz. 2, work. Or 3, sorry. I did people. Work. Another scripture from Deuteronomy. The rock, perfect in his activity, for all his ways are justice. When I think about work, I think about Khalil Gibran, the Lebanese poet's famous poem on work, which is a part of the collection, The Prophet. It's a text that I typically give to my students when they're on their way to wilderness, thinking of them on solo, sitting there reading really, really deep, great poetry, because that's my fantasy of what they're going to do. I don't know what they're doing. In that poem, my favorite line reads, it's the end of the poem, and the last line is, work is love made visible. When we think about the work that we do, work collectively, work individually, it is the manifestation of our love for ourselves, our love for each other, our love for this place that is so full of becoming. It is that of leading and learning and creating again, going back to King, who was echoed in Grace Lee Boggs, creating that beloved community. With what I'm going to add to that, with Marikey, which means to do with passion, with absolute devotion, with love and passion from the soul. I'm going to close with just the idea that the world will become what we teach here. We think a lot about Cranbrook extending out into the world, and we do. We influence it, we impact it, we can change it. Final scripture, every good gift and every perfect present is from above, coming down from the Father of celestial lights. James 1:17. Thank you for sharing the gift of this place and its people with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla, for every conversation, be it soulful, be it challenging, always essential. And congratulations. Thank you, each of you, for what you have shared this afternoon, for all that you give every day that allows Cranbrook to thrive and allows all of us to thrive with you. Before we depart, a few thanks. To Lillian Botter for establishing and promoting a way to honor excellence at Cranbrook and for sharing her insights about this event. To our presenters, James Coleman, Teresa Coleman, Kevin Mill, and Michael Young. To our staff that made this event possible, Rhonda Reed, Erica Stefani, Patty Carey, and Eric Franchi. To our facilities, capital projects, and housekeeping staffs, and of course, our colleagues at Chartwell's Dining Services. Their hard work has allowed this event to be here today. So thank you all for that. And so I share a few words from Lillian again as we began tonight. And so it continues, and we come together year after year as this celebration that renews the understanding for us of all that is at the heart of this community, and that is its people, each of you. This celebration recognizes you, all of us, through the honorees. Thank you all so much for joining us today. The recipients of the award should please take home the flower arrangements that are on the tables. Please do. And all the rest of us, please sign the photo mats in the lobby. Those will be used in a framed picture from today for each of the recipients. And so we want to capture your good thoughts and wishes there. I say to my dear colleagues, Rick, James, Roger, and Carla, congratulations. I am honored to be your colleague and friend. And so, have a great evening. Please linger as long as you can, and thank you.